hello everyone. Welcome. Good morning. Selamat pagi. Thank you for joining us today for YSLA Bootcamp 2021, Sparking Digital Conversations. How are you all feeling today? Excited to talk about our topic of the day. If anybody wants to say hi, say welcome, just put it in the chat. And thank you all for joining us. We have an exciting session coming up. The whole reason why we're running this bootcamp is so that you can tell your story. You can highlight the issues that your communities face. So thank you so much again for joining us, and hope you'll find this session interesting and insightful and get the conversation going. Right, so welcome everybody to the Importance of Digital Inclusion webinar today. Just before we get into the session, I would just like to remind everyone that applications are now open, and like last week, we'll be staying a little bit later behind to answer any questions you may have regarding the application, regarding your ideas. So feel free to stay back after this if time permits, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you have. Right, so before you apply for the bootcamp or even during, go to check out YSEALI, right? So this is a simple way that you can sign up as a YSEALI member, and you'd get a whole range of opportunities. So all you need to do is go over to the YSEALI Bootcamp YSEALI page and fill up your name over here. Once you click join, you will start once you receive a newsletter, you're a YSEALI member. It's as simple as that, right? And this is what you become a part of, right? A huge network of change makers, passionate individuals wanting to tell their stories. So without much ado, I'll just introduce our moderator for this session, our beloved partner, Rojieka. Rojieka is a Dusun and has been living in Penampang, Sabah, where she works with PACOS Trust. And she works as the coordinator for the local and international relations unit. She's very passionate about telling her community story and providing them opportunities for them to grow and to prosper. She has also been improving their lives and tells their stories at many international forums, such as the International Indigenous Women's Forum in 2020, and represented indigenous communities of Malaysia at the UN Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues in 2021. So, Rojieka, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Navin, for the introduction. So, before that, can you hear me clearly?
Yes, we can.
Yes, okay. Yeah, so before I begin, I just wanted to thanks Navin, BJBJ Initiative, Marika team, US Embassy, and also the YSEALI team for this opportunity, because it's an honor to be part of this on behalf of the organization. Ya, so selamat pagi, kepisanangan kepada semua, sebab meluangkan masa kita untuk mengikuti sesi kita pada pagi ini, dan tidak kira sama ada daripada Zoom dan juga Facebook Live ya. So yeah, I also want to say as a moderator for session today, if you have any questions, you can type in the ruangan chat Zoom or in the Facebook punya message lah, yeah. And also you can use the raise hand at the bottom of the tab. So yeah, and also the question actually you can type in Malay or in English. We can take both language. So okay, without a further ado, I would like to introduce our speakers today. So we have three amazing speakers joining us with coming from a various background and experience about the importance of the digital inclusion. So I'll begin introducing with Dr. Yen Seng. Dr. Chiu has worked with the paper packaging industry for 10 years before joining Chumbaka. So Dr. Chiu, would you like to introduce yourself and what is your organization do? Over to you, Dr. Chiu.
Right, thank you, Roji. Hi, good morning, everyone. Hope you all can hear me well. Hi, I'm Dr. Chiu from Chumbaka. nothing associated with Chewbacca from Star Wars. We are Chumbaka, right? We are a social enterprise from Penang who inspire kids to create with technology. Kids, I mean every kid, right? Whether they are in rural or they are urban, we are trying to inspire everyone, right? We are quite fortunate to be given opportunities to work with Sabah and Sarawak kids for a few years now. Right, we started back in 2016 in Sarawak and a year later in Sabah till today. Right, a quick shout out to our funders and supporters, Master, Ministry of Education, Science, Technology and Research Sarawak, SMA, SDEC, and Yayasan Khazanah for our Sarawak projects, Seng Group for our Sabah projects, as well as Yayasan Samdabi for the projects in both states. Also, our supporters, both JPN, Sarawak, and Sabah, Swinburne University, Curtin University, Unimas, UCTS in Sarawak, and UMS in Sabah. For Chumbaka, our objective is just one, right? We want to increase the digital inclusivity or reduce the digital gap for the kids in Sabah and Sarawak. And how do we do that? We only have two strategies. Yeah. Our first strategy is basically capacity building for teachers, right? Where we prepare the teachers to be an advocate and empower them to train their students. Yeah, our biggest success is the formation of 4 makerspace in Pendalaman Sabah, which is in Keningau, 1 in Tenung, and 2 in Tambunan. Right. What's special about this makerspace is that this makerspace is a collaboration between the teachers, students from 3 secondary schools, right? It's not only one party, it's between teachers and students from 3 primary schools come together to form one makerspace, and they open up the makerspace for the public in the district. Yeah, and I particularly want to draw your attention to one makerspace, which is named Ternum Innovation Center, formed by SMJK Chunghua, SMK St. Anthony, and SMK Chintamata. If you can go to the next slide, please? No, the one, yeah, this one, correct, thanks. So who are they? Ternum Innovation Center, right? Or they call themselves PIC, right? They started off with a very simple setup, mostly sponsored by corporates like Seng, MDEC, and since 2017 they have fly, right? They have do a lot of amazing things, right? They have conducted classes for teachers. Imagine student conducting classes for teachers to teach the teachers about digital, about coding, about programming, right? Pegawai PPV internal, the public, their parents, right? A lot of parents, a lot of public that are not sure what is coding, what is programming, and they do just that. And the best and the one that we're really proud of is the students have created and implemented a solution for Taman Pertanian Sabah Tenung. Right? They created a QR code system for their orchid collection. And just for the information, our Taman Pertanian Sabah is famous for their orchid collections, if you still haven't known them, right? So please do follow them. Follow all these makerspace in their FB, especially TIC. They are quite active, right? That is our first strategy. Our second strategy is more of a so-called go wide, where we're trying to create awareness among the students through competitions, right? Chumbaka runs 2 national level competitions annually: Young Innovators Challenge for secondary schools and Junior Innovate for primary schools, right? Since 2018, there were always winners from either Sabah and Sarawak for both competitions, right? Next slide, please. These are the past winners from Sabah and Sarawak since 2018. And these are the secondary schools, right? The Young Innovators Challenge, which are sponsored by Yayasan Samdabi, right? If you look at the name of the schools, how many of you know these schools? Right? Or any, right? Navin asking anyone from these schools. And they are not a famous schools. Some of them are from rural schools. For example, SMK Kemabong, they are in internal, right? Deep internal, and they make it. All right. Next slide, please. These are the past winners from the our junior innovate competition for the primary schools, and every year, trust me, every year there is a winner from Borneo. All right. So before I end my my introduction, I just want to leave with these questions to a question for the viewers to ponder. What does this show to you? What do you think Borneo are capable of? All right, thank you very much. Yeah, back to you, Roji.
Thank you, Dr. Chu, for your introduction. Yeah, so it's really interesting to hear, especially when it comes to inspire the younger generation, especially the students and also the teachers, to create with a technology which is emphasize them to be more creative and also like engaging, collaborate, and also to be build a confidence within themselves. Yeah, so without further, I will moving to our next panelist, Mr. Hazwan Razak. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'll just share my screen. Give me a sec. Cool. I'm sure you guys can see my screen, right? I'm going to assume yes. Great. Okay. So yeah, just building off of what Dr. Chu shared about the STEM programs, especially in Sarawak. I do recognize some of the schools, Dr. Chu, because we partner with Chumbaka for a lot of these programs. But so SDEC, Sarawak Digital Economy Corporation, is the newly set up GLC in Sarawak. Think of us as the state's MDEC, right? Or the poor man's MDEC. So we coordinate and oversee this initiative, this big tent initiative by the Sarawak government called the Sarawak Digital and Innovation Ecosystem, focusing on digital inclusivity within digital skills and talent, innovation, and entrepreneurship. So in terms of the beneficiaries of the whole ecosystem, we focus on these 6 key verticals: STEM, or education focused technology and solutions, tech startups, digital business, social entrepreneurs, artists, artisans, and digital creatives. So because we're new, a lot of these initiatives are still at the early stage. We're still piloting different programs, but thankfully, as part of the ecosystem, we work with several key partners to make sure that these things come to fruition. And we also partner with these organizations. On the left side, these are private sector innovation spaces. House, I'm name checking House. Magic, there is a Magic co-working space in Kuching. Plugs in Cebu, Facebook Innovation Hub Sarawak, and iCube Innovation, just to name a few. And we also fund and work with partners to run several innovation spaces across the state. The Tegas Digital Village, Digital Innovation Hub Kuching, Miri Bintulu, Sarke, essentially one innovation hub in every division of Sarawak, in every one of our 12 divisions, to make sure that we provide opportunities in every corner of the state. On top of that, we're also introducing a newer one called the Makeramai, or Makerspace. We're working with the Mereka on that to have a purpose-built makerspace in Kuching, as well as potential other satellite makerspaces across the state. And all this is connected together by another initiative within SDEC called the Sarawak Rural Broadband Network. So this provides connectivity based on Wi-Fi access and focusing on remote areas of the state. So all this is tied together, right? So where there are facilities and where there are opportunities, these are examples of the innovation hubs. They are these programs that provide these opportunities, and we work with several key partners like Tegas, the iCube Innovation, Cebu Innovation Hub, Serba Dynamic, to provide opportunities at every one of these innovation hubs to cater to the entrepreneurs and innovators and students across the state. And these partners run these programs independently, and some of them, let's say, as you can see here, they partner with RISE, partner with Mereka, partner with other social enterprises in the state to make sure that these opportunities are captured by our fellow Sarawakians. And just to show the diversity, these are just examples of the programs, right? But just to show some of the diversity of the programs, to make sure there is inclusion built in, Apart from tech startups and social entrepreneurs, we also focus on micro, small, medium enterprises by digitalization programs. Our partnership with Shopee for Sarawak Digital Mall to ensure that e-commerce sellers have especially products from Sarawak, because it's a bit more expensive logistics-wise, right, to sell products from Borneo over. So we subsidize some of the logistics costs. We also don't forget about the high net worth individuals to turn them into investors who can then funnel money back into the enterprises and innovators and students. We also run programs in different languages. This is the Sarawak Startup Entrepreneurs Competition, run in Mandarin. I think it's that program. That's what they tell me, at least. I'm kidding. We also run programs on empowerment. This was the one here. It was with Women's Day. And we also run programs for non-coders and non-tech people to learn coding, as well as we don't forget about the digital creatives by running programs with the for the IP advice, Harta Intellect, and also there's another program here by House for digital creatives, something that I think it is very important for us to be as inclusive as possible when we listen to our partners and they tell us, okay, these are the things that we need, right? And then we support them. And since Dr. Chu brought up STEM, so some of the STEM programs that we have that we've been running with Chumbaka and other partners like the Learning Curve, Teach for Malaysia, and UMA, we make sure that it is by design as inclusive as possible. And if we have to introduce separate initiatives, let's say, for example, Girls Code program, specifically for to encourage more participation from female students in schools, as well as say down here you see Science on Wheels. It's like perpustakaan bergerak, but to access areas where logistically it's more of a challenge. So and by working as a big tent, working with several partners, we are able to reach as many students as possible. And to top this all off, we track and measure all the things that we do. This is just a sample like dashboard that we do using Airtable, just to track, to make sure that there's proper impact monitoring and evaluation. And this is something that I think Dr. Rachel will talk about more. Because at the end of the day, we have to ensure that impact is there, but also sustainability, right, of these programs. And last but not least, we want to invite everyone, especially regardless of whether you're Sarawakan or not, to be part of this Sarawak digital movement. Even our branding, by the way, if you can't tell what this is, you might say the squiggly thing. This is a median, or the fern thing, right? The fern veggie, or you can call it the Sarawakan veggie, or as we call it, veggie, that really embraces the idea of inclusivity for us, because it's the first thing that this thing grows in the wild, right? The pilongkang kind of thing. It grows by the rumput, and it's eaten either with you can eat with wine, with garlic, with belacan, and literally you can't get any more grassroots than this. Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Hazwan, for the introduction of what you guys do. And it's really interesting, like, to see so many of the stakeholders involved. And not only that, it's also like create impact, but also the sustainable program. So it's not just day, but it's also continue. Yeah. So I would like to go to the third speaker, Dr. Rachel. So would you like to introduce yourself, Dr. Rachel?
Sure, thanks, Roji. Could I have the slides up, please? Thank you. Hi, good morning, everyone. Before I start, I also want to echo all the thanks to the YCV organizers for setting this up and for the opportunity to be here to meet you all today. Let me introduce myself. I'm Dr. Rachel Gong, and I'm a sociologist, which means that I study society and how different groups in society interact with things like power and influence and money and resources. More specifically, I'm a digital sociologist, which means that I study how digital technologies influence the way we think about our communities and society and how we behave and interact in accordance with those new ways of digital thinking. I'm currently working at the Khazanah Research Institute that's based in Kuala Lumpur. We always welcome perspectives and viewpoints from Sabah and Sarawak, so looking forward to hearing yours. Can I have the next slide, please? So for those of you who aren't familiar with Khazanah Research Institute, we are a not-for-profit organization that started operations in 2014. We carry out research on pressing issues of the nation, and based on that research, we recommend policies to improve the well-being of Malaysians. So we recommend policies to government, but we also share our research, our findings with the public and community organizations to help everyone sort of learn more about the issue and advance their thoughts and their work on these important issues. Our research covers a wide range of topics, including things like housing, nutrition, unemployment, and most recently, we have a book out on digital transformation. Next slide, please. So a few months ago in June, we released this book called Network Nation, Navigating Challenges and Realizing Opportunities of Digital Transformation. The book has 8 chapters that cover a lot of new topics under digital transformation that we group under 2 themes: digital inclusion, which we're talking about today, and also digital governance as we think about how we move forward into the future. So also a good opportunity to explore these things. And we hope that it can be useful for you as you think about digital inclusion. So you can download it from our website or access it using the QR code on the slide here. Next slide, please. As a general sort of policy goal, digital inclusion is an approach that is geared towards making sure that everyone in all communities, including the most disadvantaged communities, has meaningful connectivity, meaning meaningful access and meaningful use of the internet and of digital technologies. So this means that not only do we need to close the digital divide in terms of access, but we also need to reduce other barriers to digital adoption, meaning that we think about affordability, we think about language, we think about disability, and we think about system design of how we make digital technologies more accessible to people. So let me just highlight the key point that we want to make on digital inclusion. Digital inclusion involves meaningful connectivity. It's not enough to just say, oh, we have access to the internet. Of course, it starts there, but we also have to have other things as well. And in our research, we identified 4 dimensions of meaningful internet access and 2 dimensions of meaningful internet use. So of course, we start with internet access. We must have infrastructure and basic things set up so that you can connect to the internet. But people also need to have an appropriate device for the task that they're trying to do online. Sometimes a smartphone is enough, but sometimes you need a computer. You need to have enough data so that you can stream all the video that you need or download all the files that you need in order to do your work. And you need enough speed to do all this as well. So all these things are part of digital inclusion. And once we have these basic things set up, we also need to have digital skills and digital literacy. So digital skills means you know how to do something. So for example, you know how to use Facebook or you know how to perform an online transaction. But digital literacy means that you understand the nuances. You understand when you should use Facebook and when you should use TikTok. You understand why it's important that your password is a little bit more complicated, why you need multi-factor authentication and all those sorts of things as well. And it's something that we need everybody in society to achieve so that nobody is left behind. So these are some of the things that we talk about in the book and some of the things that we think are important for communities to work on, for policymakers to work on. And it has to be not just for people in Kuala Lumpur, but from people hearing the viewpoints of people from Sabah and Sarawak as well. So I look forward to the conversation that we're going to have on all these things. Back to you, Roji.
Thank you, Dr. Rachel. Yeah, so it's really important from what point of what you have said. It's really important to have the connectivity, but it's not only about the connectivity, but also to understand why it's digital, why you need this to access for this digital advice, or like you have to have enough space, or also like you have to understand what is the digital literacy. Yeah. So there is like, I didn't see any question yet. So maybe I just continue with the, yeah. So I think Luther want to say something. You have opinion on it? You can, yeah. You can speak, Luther.
Yeah, Luther, if you want to
Yeah.
unmute yourself and just quickly share. Go for
Okay.
it.
It's actually mostly referring to one more. It's mostly referring to Dr. Rachel's point earlier. Because the question popped up that what we think about the hold on, let me just open my chat. Like what we think about the the topic just about earlier, and there was I do agree in that we do need appropriate device. Like right now, I am on a tablet, so when I open my video, you're going to see from my waist up to my head and a lot of my background. And then when you're on a PC, you can actually have easier time looking at everyone else in the gallery view. And different devices give you different advantages and perks. But like was mentioned earlier, not everyone has that capacity to own so many kinds of devices. Then there's the topic of digital literacy. For digital literacy, this one is actually particularly stressed not just in Sabah, Sarawak, or even Malaysia, but also globally, because different applications of these programs, applications, or use that are now integrated into our daily life or adopted into our daily life. We need to know like the nuances of why these things happen. Like, why do people love so much about cat videos as opposed to serious topics? Why do people like to follow these TikTokers and believe that TikTokers should be relieved of should not get certain court sentences when they do, despite the graveness of their crimes, when opposed to a typical man who's charged with murder and deserves death sentences by everyone else. So yeah, these nuances are sometimes that we should take note of and should be understood by not just people in Sabah, Sarawak, or Malaysia, but also globally if possible. But for now, we just start small, which is Sarawak and Sabah. Thank you.
Thank you, Luther, for that comments. Yeah. So we have one question from Tariq Zaman. So what is the role or need of SDEC in the presence of MDEC? Maybe
I guess that's for me, right? Yeah.
Yes.
I guess. Well, that is a very good question, Tariq. So SDEC is a state agency, just similar to SDEC in Selangor, Digital Penang in Penang. We run, I think, similar to Digital Penang and SDEC, we run on our own state funds. And at the same time, we cater to areas where there are gaps in certain federal initiatives. For example, so MDEC has a host of initiatives for, say, digitalization, right? But they can't reach everyone. And this is the same way, let's say, Chumbaka runs STEM programs. And every year they are able to capture, say, 80 to 100 secondary schools for the Young Innovators Challenge in Sarawak. But then in Sarawak, we have 1,400 schools, right? So there is that challenge of capacity. How can you reach as many people as possible and provide them these opportunities that digital inclusion ensures, right? So for us, we definitely synergize with MDEC for any initiatives that we can. But at the same time, we also have a deeper focus with a on-the-ground understanding, a local understanding of what else we can do to make sure that digital inclusivity is felt by everyone. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you, Hazwan, for that. Yeah, so I think there is no more question, but yeah, I would like to invite for all participants to if you have any comments or you want to share something, you can raise your hand or chat in the box. Yeah, so yeah, you can type in Malay as well. Yeah, okay, so like as I heard from Chumbaka, Dr. Chiu, yeah, so as you work with the teachers and the students, are there any challenges that you have faced, or how do you overcome for it, the challenges?
All right, thank you, Roji. Yeah, definitely. That is always a challenge in whatever we do. All right, so I think that's another probably something that whoever future that going to join this the Wisely bootcamp, just don't be afraid of challenges. But I just want to point out two challenges that I myself face when we are in Sabah and Sarawak running our projects, right? The main issue that I think is the mindset and self-confidence of Sabahan and Sarawakian, right? What I get out was a lot of the Sabahan and Sarawakian students always felt left out, or they felt is inferior to the Semenanjung, which I think is not right. We should be equal. Semenanjung are not inferior, but that is. Then I realized that there is no point you keep on telling them, say, oh, you have to be confident. You are no different from Semenanjung. No, you keep on telling them they don't get it. They won't get it, right? No matter how many times, they won't get it. But what we found out is that you need to get them gain some small wins. So what we do, when we run our project, we did a lot of programming, coding, robotic kind of project, which is quite, in a way, we are using Arduino embedded system, which now has been introduced to school, but before that, it was only available in university. And imagine these rural students, from lower secondary, primary, and they can do that. And by doing, they managed to create something out from that. Even simple, doesn't matter. It gave them a lot of confidence. And just look at TIC, the Ternum Innovation Center, with just a simple thing, and they just fly. Once they have their confidence, once they have their mindset correct, they will just do whatever they need, right? And I'm very happy. One thing that I found in Sabah and Sarawak is generally the students there are very hungry for knowledge. You just throw them anything, they will just learn. They will just learn. And frankly speaking, I don't find a lot of this in Semenanjung. Right, so yeah, that's what I'm going to share about the challenges. Right, thank you, Roji.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Chu. Yeah, it's really true. Yeah, because when you're going to the Sabah especially in the interior area, it's really hard to keep them going to the front. Yeah, so you have to slowly approaching them the simple way. Yeah, it's really true. So yeah, how about you, Hazwan?
Well, in terms of challenges, I think the main one from my point of view, where we're working with several partners, is generally the number one is getting everyone to the table and working together with everyone. I think that it's more of a interpersonal challenge to make sure that we're all aligned, and there are ways that we overcome it. For example, at the end of the day, I think everyone that throws their hat into the ring and says that they want to be doing something positive for the community, we're all aligned, right? Deep down. The challenge is finding that alignment with everyone. I think, but then, and having said that, I'm really, really lucky. My team's really lucky to have people like Dr. Chu and people like House and people like Marika, whom we've been working with and we continue to work with, who share the same ideals and help each other out. I think that's an interesting thing. And we're learning something new from them every single day. For example, Dr. Chu, because we've had several conversations about this, about how some of the STEM programs, don't think about it as a technology program. It's a technology agnostic. It's not really about the tools that you use, because tools change and evolve quite fast. But the key thing is the soft skills learning, the project work, right? The solutioning, and that problem solving is what is key, and that will actually ensure the students that learn these things are catered for life.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Hazwan. Yeah, so I saw one question for Dr. Rachel. So what the internet consumer rights and mechanism to get meaningful connectivity in Malaysia, especially in the 3 states of Malaysia, which is recently agreed to consider internet connectivity as utility. Yeah, Dr. Rachel.
Yes, thanks, Roji. And thanks, Tariq, for the question on that. So let me back up a little bit and talk about this idea of the internet as a public utility, or even as a human right. I think as we move towards more digital apps and more digital technology, that principle of us needing connectivity in the same way we need electricity and water is very much policy thinking at the global and national level. I'm not sure which 3 states, apologize for that, but my understanding is that this is in fact a national idea now that the government has committed to. So they are saying that they will put in funding to cover the cost of laying infrastructure everywhere around the country to ensure some sort of basic access. The question, of course, as we have been talking a little bit about, is not just about getting this basic access in, but getting it in a point that we can use it meaningfully, which I think is that consumer question that you're asking about. So a couple of things that MCMC has instituted to make that possible is they have 2 basic requirements. One is the minimum standard on access prices, which basically limits how expensively access to the big cables can be when they're selling it to telcos. So meaning, for example, TM will lay down big cables and things like that and say, this is the trunk line for which data comes through from your undersea ports and so on. But we cannot sell it at too high a price to all the smaller service providers, which should then, by trickle-down theory, prevent them from selling it at too high a cost to the consumer. Now, in practice, that's not necessarily always the case because the consumer earns a different amount. So it may not be so expensive for people in urban areas that earn a higher salary, but it's still going to be considered quite expensive for people in rural areas. So this is something that we policymakers do need to look at and consider and say, hey, maybe we cannot charge the same price, even though for urban areas, we think this is a reasonable price. And all things considered, data in Malaysia is actually quite reasonably priced. But one thing that consumers can do is they can write into MCMC and say, look, you need to rethink this. MCMC actually welcomes people writing in. I don't know the process of how they look through all the comments that come in, but they have a place on their website where you can write in and say, look, my concerns are this, or my experience with the internet connection is not so good, or it's too expensive for the price I'm paying and things like that. So that's one way that the consumers can demand their rights. The other way is the mandatory standard on broadband performance. So here it's not about pricing, but about the kind of quality of network connectivity that you're getting. So for example, if you pay for 4G connectivity on your mobile phone, but constantly you cannot connect to the internet, or you make a call and your call drops and things like that. Again, on MCMC's website, there's a place for you to say, look, I'm constantly having this problem in this area with this service provider and so on and so forth. And they do actually look into it, and they do have statistics on how many reports they get from what areas and things like that. So these are some ways in which, yes, it does involve more of a challenge on the individual user, but there is a means there. And I think if there's enough action taken from the user perspective, this does channel up so that MCMC becomes aware this is an issue that they need to look into. And it's one of the things that KRI has been saying, that a lot of these digital inclusion issues must be all of society. It cannot just be the government trying to put in infrastructure. They need to hear from people saying, specifically, our problem is not regular access. Our problem is having enough speed. That's really where you need to focus your policies. And I think with what Dr. Chiu and Hazwan was saying earlier as well, is it's not just about the economy or access. It's about all these soft skills that need to be developed as well. And so getting organizations and communities together to say, fine, now we have the internet, but really we need to develop the soft skills around thinking about how we make this part of our community, and especially thinking about elders, right, who may not be as comfortable or as familiar. How do we get them involved? What can we do as in our community? How can we ask our local authority or our state government to reach out specifically to these groups to help make digital adoption more inclusive?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Rachel. Yeah, I totally agree that one. because even in my village, even though it's just like 15 minutes to the main town, it's not too far. So we still don't have actually internet connection. And actually most of our the students who has like online classes, they have to go out actually. But for those who don't have the access, like a car, like going out, it's really hard for them. So they have to go like climbing to the mountain, like just to find a line connection. And then it's really hard for them because sometimes there is a safety actually related. You have to be with the parents actually when you want to find the internet connection. Yeah, but I think the digital literacy also really important, because in the village, some of them not really know about in the digital literacy. Yeah, so yeah, we have a question for all speakers. It's from Wani. So how do your organization promote digital inclusions among marginalized groups such as the indigenous peoples, and what challenges you faced? I think some of this Dr. Chu already maybe mentioned. You can maybe.
Yeah, sure.
Oh yeah, Dr. Chu, yeah.
I just to summarize again, say like for Chumbaka, as we work on the ground, what we need to do is we need to empower the teachers. That's what we need. We can't touch every single children, like what Hazwan said. That is 1,270 primary school alone in Sarawak. I'm not sure about Sabah, right? And we just can't go to touch every single student. So what we can do is, again, sometimes we Chumbaka put it as a multi-level marketing, where we train the teachers and teachers trigger down. And that's what we are doing, right? That's one of our objectives as a capacity building. And again, same thing with the teachers. We need to shift a bit of the mindset and then build the confidence of the teachers, saying that, no, these marginalized students, they are not anything less than the children in the urban. The only thing they are lacking is experience, exposure. And that is where we, Chumbaka, working with the teachers, that's where we provide that gap. Give them experience, give them exposure, and hopefully they fly. All right, so that's hopefully answer Wani's questions.
Cool, I'll just have a go then as well. So since Dr. Chu talked about STEM, I'll talk about say e-commerce, right? So in our partnership with Shopee, to allow more Sarawakian products to be more competitive by providing discounts and vouchers, right, for the buyers. Once we did that, so we got a lot of participation, about 5,000 over Sarawakian sellers on Shopee onboarded. But then when we analyze the data, a majority of these sellers are actually from the bigger cities, like Kuching, Miri, Cebu, Bintulu. So we thought, okay, maybe some of the smaller towns, they need additional help. So we partner up with another organization, Centers Commercial. They do product development, copywriting, and packaging to make sure these products sell better. So once we've done that, and then we found another challenge. Some of these other sellers have logistical constraints, especially the ones like deep in Kapit. They can't sell it. So we're at that stage now, right? So we arrived at a stage where, because we tried to address one problem after the other, and once we have a solution, other things we can focus on, try to solve that problem. For the logistics part, this is where some of the digital innovation hubs in different divisions come in. We also partner up with MCMC's Pusat Internet Community, PIK. Last time it was called Pusat Satu Internet something, right? So we partner up with this, and to make sure that the opportunities are also extended to these locations, to make sure we reach as many people as possible. At the same time, the one I mentioned earlier, the connectivity initiative by the Sarawak government for the rural broadband, as well as other general initiatives in partnership with MCMC, are also there to make sure that there are facilities that are provided for the most remote areas of Sarawak, as well as tied together with what my team and our community and our ecosystem partners do, which is on the content side, to make sure that there is a digital skills and talent and digital literacy opportunities provided along with the infrastructure.
Okay, I'll take a turn as well. I think, yeah, because KRI typically looks at policies from a national level. So we are kind of, very high bird's eye view of the situation. So I don't think we give as much detail as perhaps you're looking for in terms of marginalized groups. But it is a weakness that we're aware of. And I think something that we have been talking about is really needing to get perspectives from Sabah and Sarawak. One of the challenges that we do recognize in coming up when doing our research and recommending policy is that it really is quite Semenanjung focused. And so if we could have more perspectives and more input from Sabah and Sarawak, I think that would really help what we're trying to do. And that's been a bit of a challenge because there's not a lot of data in general, even at national level, but even to break it down into more detail to get on marginalized groups, actually across the country, has been something that we struggle with. And I think it's something that everyone who's doing research in Malaysia would be struggling with as well. But yeah, I think one of the things that we would definitely like to see is kind of ideas for how we can advance this, in Sabah and Sarawak. So yeah, if this is a good opportunity to discuss some of those ideas as well.
Sorry, Roji, I think we can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, thank you for the comments and the feedback for the question. And we actually have one more question from Sharil. Are there any platforms where we can connect people who are passionate about technology and digitalization? Maybe any one of you want to start first? Dr. Rachel?
Sure. I have actually, and this is just personal experience. I have actually found like-minded people mostly hanging around on social media, and specifically on Twitter, where you see sort of the activists and the public interest technologies kind of talking about things that can be done. I wouldn't say I have the greatest network on how of people and activists and researchers in the country, but it's certainly a place to start. And I think most people who are in this space are quite happy to have people reach out to them and just say, hey, I'm interested in this issue. Can we talk more and things like that? So if you're just looking to get more information from different perspectives, I think that's a good way to go. Certainly, there are a lot of civil society organizations like the Third World Network, also based in Penang, covers a variety of these issues and will be open to speaking to people. But yeah, I don't know that there's been a sort of strategic platform set up to connect, public interest technologies and digital folks in Malaysia. Maybe that's something that that the campaign can come out of that to start that.
I'm gonna say Reddit. Okay. But in general, the idea of the innovation hubs and digital pusat internet community are essentially for the community, right? They're essentially to gather people of like-minded interests, especially those interested in innovation, startups, entrepreneurship. And they do this by having either, now it's webinars, but before this, it was physical seminars, once-off programs, 2-hour workshops, where people can gather and discuss ideas and share their insights. At the same time, these innovation hubs are also co-working spaces. So the idea that there's a lot of synergy and energy for people with various interests, but with a passion for technology can gather. So in Sarawak, there are these spaces. On top of that, part of the reason why we're working with America on setting up a makerspace in Kuching is to gather the maker community, whether it's students, hobbyists, or just people just passionate to learn about tinkering with things and tools, to come to a location for them to do this. So yeah, hopefully after the MCO and COVID has subsided, we can see each other face to face in Sarawak. On top of that, I think just to think for certain universities in Sarawak, we have 5 big universities in Sarawak: UNIMAS, UITM, UCTS, Curtin, Swinburne. Each of these universities are also part of the Center of Excellence for Technology. This is also part of the digital agenda in Sarawak. So I guess some of you are from the universities. I think Dr. Tariq is one of them. So yeah, so through your university, you can also connect with other like-minded innovators and academicians from the rest of the universities in Sarawak. Thanks.
Thanks, Hazwan. Yeah, you can go, Luther.
Right, sorry, Reggie.
Oh yeah.
I'm just going to pour some cold water on this. I think the one that asking is Sharia, right? About the platform. I mean,
Yes.
frankly speaking, I've seen a number of platforms fail, right? A lot of people trying to create a platform, but it fails, right? And I hope that people, all the youth out there, please don't keep on looking out, waiting for a platform to be formed. Because when people create platform, it's not through their heart. They have some other thing, some other meaning, or some other direction, or some other interest, right? So that's why I think Dr. Rachel and Hazwan was saying is very, very clear. Look for like-minded people. And how do you look for them? That's where Hazwan is saying, right? Go to all the digital maker hub, all in Sarawak. And if you are in Sabah, I know nobody's defending Sabah. So I'm going to talk about Sabah. Right, so if you're in Sabah, the first people that you should go to if you're talking about digital should go to look for Kinabalu coders. Go to talk to Kinabalu coders. And they are like us, they have a lot of connections. Yeah, talk to them, and then you can start to see there are a lot of players, even in schools, right? Just like I said just now, talk to Tenom Innovation Centers. Right, they have the teachers and the students that are very, very interested about this digital inclusion, right? They are trying to educate every single primary school in their district so that every student in their district know what is coding and programming. And these are the like-minded people that you are looking for, and they are everywhere, right? And usually these like-minded people are so-called, they don't easily come together. They are everywhere, and they don't always on the platform. All right. So please don't always look for a platform. Go in and you will find them. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chiu, for sharing that. I also never heard for this group actually. So yeah, we'll look into this later on. Yeah, so Luther, you want to say something?
Yes, please. Dr. Chiu actually said something that I was going to speak as well, especially about people that make the platforms purposely for the sake of gathering connections. Typically, people who actually make independent platforms that are not part of that are niche in their own way. Sad to say, it's like what Dr. Chiu said. There is always a kind of agenda hidden behind it. We will never know until it is either too late or unless someone investigates and blares out to the general public, and the Bound Army goes raid this platform and takes it down. But in terms of getting like-minded people, whether they are digitalists, innovators, and so on, the easiest way, which the speakers have already mentioned, is social media. And if you don't have a lot of social media accounts, or even like to venture or maintain certain platforms, the easiest way to do it is literally Facebook, because you can just ask Malaysian history, then the Facebook gives you a list, and you decide from there on how you want to find these kind of groups. So this is an example of finding like-minded individuals. Some people, like, let's say your friends physically can point to this group or this organization and so on. So again, physical and digital will need to work hand in hand to find like-minded individuals, and it's up to you as the person who's looking for these people to filter, identify, and understand that whether these people or this organization or these groups can help you in your ways to learn and approach the situations. And sometimes you may have some interesting fun with these groups. Yeah, I don't want to say here because it's being live streamed, but I'll share it after it's live stream. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Luther. We have another questions from Megan. Okay, it's quite long, the question actually. So how do we ensure digital literacy? This is for those who are afraid to use technology. I think this is related to the maybe digital safety. Yeah, so and how do we educate baby boomers to think critically so that they don't allow misinformations to affect them psychologically and emotionally, because it does change their entire perspective in life, and mostly believing conspiracy theories and feeding into fear, doubt, and uncertainty. And also there's another one, how do we create a safe space or community to address these issues to help our baby boomers or older generations? So would there be more education to hone their digital literacy skills? Yeah, quite long actually. And
yeah, sorry, probably I can go first.
yes,
Yeah,
Dr.
if you
Chu.
don't mind, Roji.
Yes.
To be frank, Megan, I speak for myself. I don't speak for Dr. Rachel or Hazwan. I think I'm not the one that should tell you how to do, right? But if you should know that I expect Megan, you are from either Sabah or Sarawak, right? And this is, I think, things that I noticed, right? A lot of us in Semenanjung, we will go over to Sabah and Sarawak and we will tell them this, to do that, which is not correct. And we have experienced this, right? We are not there to tell you what to do and how to do this, right? And I'm very sure your local Sabahan, Sarawakian, you know better what is your community needs and how to run it. Yeah, you can always adopt from Semenanjung, from everywhere around the world, but you have to localize this method, right? And one of the things that I want to say is that look at TIC. Again, I'll point out to Tenam Innovation Center. Look at what they did, right? They open up their space to give an introduction to the local society about programming. So a lot of parents sign up because they are curious, right? They heard through social media what is programming, what is robotic, what is IR 4.0, but have no clue and they don't know where to do it. And the best thing is not only educating them, but again, a hands-on experience. Let them try it out. And I think the beauty of it is done through a students, done through their children. You know, it's like a children teaching the adults, not about a professional come and teach the adults. Right? So you flip the table around. And when I believe, because I saw them when they do it, when they flip the table around where the students start to teach the parents, start to teach the teachers, start to teach the pegawai PPD, and it get more, it's easier to pass through that message. Yeah, and it becomes a learning community indirectly. And you start to change the mindset of the whole education, right? I sincerely believe that is not effective if a professional company, so sorry to say this, but I don't think a professional company go in and start teaching digital literacy to the community. It doesn't work that way. It's no longer about teacher teaching. We need to get them experience. And the best teacher now is their own children. Their own children, their own local children, right? So that is the best way, right? To get them in and get the whole community, to get the whole community involved. Like there's a saying that, to raise a child, you need a whole village. And please, whatever you all do, get the community to get involved. And you will see success. Yeah, don't listen to people like us, like me, myself from Semenanjung. We don't know much about Sabahan, Sarawakian, right? We don't understand. And I start to see there's a difference between Sabahan in KK and Sabahan in Tawau, right? So that is a lot of empathy needed. And I think the empathy can come from your local Sabahan and Sarawakian. Yeah, hopefully that's I answer you, Megan.
Thanks, Dr. Chu. How about you, Hazwan?
Oh, I think Dr. Chu said it really well. I mean, I sometimes feel like I have to, as a son, right? I teach my parents about like what not to share, what to share. I mean, even my dad, when he was working, he's retired now. When he was working, he didn't know how to use computers, and he would always outsource to us kids to type his letters and everything. But now, once he's retired, he's actually posting food reviews on Facebook, and he's a social media influencer. You know, like he's editing photos on his phone. So digital skills part is good, but in terms of digital literacy, like what Dr. Rachel said, knowing what not to share, you know, like things are suspicious, it's a scam, not so much. So it is up to, I agree with Dr. Chu, it is up to us kids to teach our parents. And I just like to highlight also that ARUS had this initiative called Media Education for All, which I thought was really amazing. And they train teachers to teach the students about media literacy or digital literacy. And then hopefully then, you know, like what Dr. Chu said, these students will then teach the parents and the community, impart this knowledge, right? Embed it into their communities to make sure it really works. Of course, organizations or authorities like MCMC also come up with these campaigns about Berita Palsu and Sebenarnya.my. I'm not sure actually how effective these are, but maybe Dr. Rachel can share about those.
Sure. I think it's a very important question. And to a certain extent, I totally agree with what Dr. Chu and Hazwan have been saying. Particularly to the point, for example, on Sebenarnya.my. When you sort of, okay, we're going to tackle this issue of misinformation specifically. If we're going to tackle this issue one point at a time by putting up palsu on a report, by, you know, whatever, showing some statistic or some fact on something else, I don't think that's an effective method of doing it, just to contest, you know, one piece of misinformation with one fact. That's not how human psychology generally works. So the point that Hazwan was making, I totally agree, where it has to come from somebody you trust, the children, the community, to sort of say, we're not going to argue facts here. You know, we just want you to try and explain why it is you think that, or what did you see that made you think that way, and maybe we can like consider why you should check your sources first, or things like that. But to straight away like bantah and say, no, it's not like that, it's this other way, it's not effective. And how much more if it's coming from an outsider, a professional company or something like that. So I totally agree with those points. That said, I think there are general principles that we can apply just from our understanding, you know, broadly of human psychology and the way people think. And we can learn from not just where it's happening elsewhere in Malaysia, but globally as people face this problem, and recognizing that a lot of it is not the information that circulates around the WhatsApp groups, but it's really in what, you know, I think we alluded to this earlier, what platforms and bigger companies like that are allowing to filter down to us. And so I think we have to think not just how do we protect our local communities, but what do we demand from government, from policymakers, from these people who control the information, and what should we be saying to them? Hey, please be responsible for what you're putting out there before it comes all the way down to us, and then we have to do sort of damage control at this stage. And that's something that I think as we move further along in thinking about digital inclusion, we have to think about going forward with digital governance, and again, what we're going to demand of our policymakers and of corporations in managing all these things to help us to protect the community as well.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Rachel. Yeah, I totally agree for all what you have said as well, because you know, in the community, because sometimes like the berita palsu, it's really fast to coming for them, but some in the area, rural area, it's really hard to like to get the fast information because of the connectivity. So I think this is what we can see, or maybe in the like maybe what's next to do. So yeah. And for the next questions, this is especially for Hazwan. It's from Gary. I'm just curious on the Sarawak rural broadband connectivity from SDEC. Will there be any opportunity that we can explore setting up community networks extending from the fixed Wi-Fi technology?
All right. Short answer. I guess as long as if the goal is to extend the usability of these networks, I think the short answer is yes. We can definitely explore them. Yeah. But I think Gary, you can get in touch with me after the session.
Thanks, Hazwan. Yeah. So yeah, I don't see any more question from the audience. Yeah. So I think before we, because the time it's running out, I'm going to the last question for all panelists. So what is the words encouragement for the words to inspire the next generation, the younger generation, especially in the digitals? Yeah, maybe to Dr. Chiu.
Okay, I can go first so that the other two speakers don't take my points. Right. My advice is this. I only have two advice. First advice is really from my heart, but the second advice, which I learned 2 days ago in Hari Malaysia during another webinar. So my first advice is listen to your heart. Ask yourself, what do you want? Don't keep on looking up to other people, right? Like I said, I repeat myself again. Don't keep on looking up to Semenanjung. Don't keep on looking up to US. Don't keep on looking up to all the developed countries. Look inside. What do you need? Right? And I'm very sure you know what need to be changed to make Sabah and Sarawak better. Right? Ask yourself, right? And when you really need to look up, and sometimes we need to look up to like Semenanjung, US, and all these developed country to get some idea. What have they done? And please don't copy bulat and cut and paste into Sabah and Sarawak. I can bet you it don't work. It doesn't work, right? You need to ask yourself, what can be done to make them to localize it and to suit your own community. All right. Yeah. So I'm very sure a lot of things that you know what is need to be done. And I'm very sure you know a lot of limitation, a lot of barriers, a lot of challenges. But again, like just now, Dr. Rachel was saying, I'm going to put it very plainly outside there. Please don't just complain. Don't keep on complaining, say, I don't have internet, I don't have this, I don't have that. Don't complain. The more you complain, nobody will help you. Right? And if you listen to Dr. Rachel properly, reach out. Don't complain. You need to reach out. No point you complaining, right? You reach out. Tell your stories and people will pay attention to you. All right. And my last advice to you all is, which I learned from Sabah, langgar sahaja. Just langgar sahaja. Do it. Right? Just do it. Don't complain. Just do it. Right? Fail is okay. But remember, learn from failure. That's what you need to do. All right. So I'll leave it to you all. Just langgar sahaja. Thank you very much.
Yeah, to Hazwan.
Okay, all right. So I guess Dr. Chu was first, so age before beauty, right? And then we saved Dr. Rachel best for last. Yeah, I agree with Dr. Chu because he stole my points. Kidding. So I was gonna say, like, because there are some lessons people say, oh right, the case method, right? You copy and steal everything. But yes, you have to localize it, and because if you just copy and paste, it's not going to work. And I think about finding inspiration. The best thing you can do right now to find inspiration is to join the bootcamp, the YCLA bootcamp. Sign up. We just opened up. I'm serious. I mean, sure, you can find inspiration from the Malalas and the Gretas. You're all inspirational, right? But there's no bigger inspiration than hearing about the amazing work that your peers and your countrymen and countrywomen are doing. They're so great. Undi 18, kita jaga kita, the Americas and the Chumbakas and the house. What they're doing is for the communities that you actually care about, your communities, right? So by joining these bootcamps and the programs, whether the programs at the innovation hubs or other YCL programs, Acumen Fellowship, Parliament Digital, you learn firsthand from the reality of their fight, the struggles, about how and the challenges they have in trying to overcome the challenges of your communities. And you don't just learn from the speakers. I think more importantly, you learn from each other, right? Your peers, your fellow cohort people. And these networks that you build, these bonds, will carry you throughout your journey. I think that's one thing that I think should bear in mind. And at the same time, the things that you're doing, just remember the things that you're doing, the change that you seek is bigger than you, right? So you are not the end all and be all of the thing that you're fighting for. Because for me personally, my team operates on the mindset that our end goal about building this ecosystem is that so that at the end of the day, our current roles within the ecosystem is diminished. That the ecosystem, the digital ecosystem, is thriving and vibrant without our input anymore. Then we'll know we've done our part, so that we can focus on the next step, right? The next gap. Right. Thank you.
Thanks, Hazwan. Dr. Rachel.
Wow, what is there to say after that? That's very inspiring from both Dr. Chu and Cik Hazwan. I guess what I would say, I have actually been really inspired in the last few months over like we were talking about Undi 18 and really the movement of youth in the country, stepping up, challenging the status quo, demanding more. So I think I would start out by saying that keep demanding more. Expect more from not just yourselves, but from your communities, from your leaders. Demand more. Ask, why are things the way they are? Can they not be improved? And push for that. Keep doing that. I think that's very important. I will differ a little bit. I think, well, I say yes, of course, it's very important for you to find your peers and work with that age group that that is looking for change and not stuck in old mindsets and things like this. But my personal experience is that the value of a mentor, like a real mentor, right? Not somebody who's just like in charge, like a supervisor, but somebody who understands your vision, somebody who understands the change that you want to make and can help guide you, not to direct you and tell you, do it like this, do it like that, but can push you and say, have you thought about this? Have you considered that? Or let me share with you something from somewhere that maybe you can think about. That's really helpful. So if you can find yourself a mentor, a teacher, a community leader, as you start to do more, you'll become a mentor yourself. I think that's an important part of really pushing for change in society is mentorship. So I would leave that with you as well, I think.
Thank you, Dr. Rachel. Thank you for our panelists today, Dr. Chu, Hazwan, and Dr. Rachel, for a valuable, really interesting session, actually, especially for the younger generation like me. Yeah, so digital inclusion is something like it's all within our community, not only in the community, but also all the individual, like access the internet, and also the capacity to understand around us what is the digital actually. So it's not only about digital, about how to use, but also the policy or anything related to the digital. Actually, we need to understand for that one. And yeah, like Dr. Chu and Hazwan and also Dr. Rachel said, we have to listen to our heart and also like understand what we want actually. So as a future generation, we need to push ourselves. Yeah, as a youth. Yeah. So I think we are finished for this part, and I over to Navin. Back to Navin.
Thank you so much, Roji, and wonderful speakers, Dr. Rachel, Dr. Chu, Hazwan. Really insightful and meaningful session, and really appreciate all your sharing and all the conversations from the people over here, the participants. Really appreciate all of you guys sharing your thoughts. Mr. Tariq, Luther, and whoever, Gary, whoever else I missed out. Really appreciate you all sharing your thoughts on this issue.